See where it says y equal 2x plus 3? Now you're going to write on the second handout right now, everybody. See where it says right above the line, if a function is defined by an equation such as y equal 2x plus 3, you can write its inverse by first interchanging the variables. Now, watch this. Now, I think you should be able to remember this from the beginning of the year. Joe, pay attention. Y equals 2x plus 3, f of x equals 2x plus 3. I'm just saying the name of the function is f. If I told you it was g, that'd be g of x. If I told you it was h, it'd be h of x. What I'm saying is this means the same as this. The f of x is the same as the y. And I just gave you that. You can write the inverse by interchanging the variables. So if you have y equals 2x plus 3, now you're writing in that blank space on the handout. We're going to find the inverse. Okay, interchange the variables. Y becomes x, and x becomes y. You're writing in the blank space on that paper. Now, it says, if possible, solve for the y variable. Now, I don't think this should be very hard to do. If I told you to solve this equation for y, you know, get y by itself, wouldn't you have to take this 3 and throw it on the other side first? So x minus 3 equals 2y. And then what would you do to both sides just to get that? This part's easy. Solve for y. What would you do to both sides? Somebody? Yeah.
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2. So what would y equal? Chris just said divide by 2. If 2y equals x minus 3, what would y equal? He just said just divide both sides by 2. Max?
X over 2 and then minus 3.
No, just write it as one fraction.
Oh, so it would be x minus 3 over 2.
Or, if f of x is this, here's how you would write the inverse. F inverse of x equals that. Now just look what I'm doing. Because in a few minutes here, it's going to go to trigonometry. That's algebra. So if I gave you this, and I said find the inverse, you would flip the variables, solve for y, there's the inverse. The only problem is, that's not what we're going to do. This is trig. So look at what it says on the paper. Given y equals sine of x, it says first interchange x and y. So see how I wrote x equals sine of y? Now, bear with me when I explain this. The rule x equals sine of y, right here. If I told you to solve that for y right now, you wouldn't know what to do. Actually, it makes no sense. You see, it says there the rule x equals sine of y cannot be solved for y at this time. I mean, that's sine of y. That's one thing. That's an angle. Thus, and you're going to have to write this down because I left the space, the inverse of the sine function must be given a new name and meaning in the following manner. Now, see where it says inverse sine function? Now, in that space, here's the rule to find inverse for sine. Write this down. Y equals, now look at how I'm writing this. I'm putting a -1 up there. This is y equals inverse sine of x. Or, fellas, this is just symbolism that's used. You know, you might say, well, where are you getting this from? This is the symbolism that's used. There's another way to write that. Y equals arc sine of x. Now, I'm just giving you this. Okay, you're just going to have to accept this. This is just two different ways you could do it. Now, before I go any farther, this is y equals inverse sine of x. This is y equals inverse sine of x. This means exactly the same as this. And you might be sitting there going, why are you giving it to us both ways? Because when you start doing homework problems, sometimes they write it like this, sometimes they write it like this. But what I'm saying to you is this is the same thing written two different ways. Yes.
Will we be using a calculator during
Huh? For this? No.
Okay.
No, the answer is no.
Should they be in radians?
Hold on, I'm getting to that. Hold on. I'm getting to that. Inverse sine of x, inverse sine of x. What does this mean? Here's what it means. Means you're writing in the space on the handout. This means the sine of y is equal to x for, now watch this. Let's see if one of you can give me this. Now write that down. Like I said, I'm going to take this slow today. Why did I give you that first sheet with all the special angles on it? You got to know those again. They're all going to come back. Now, look at what it says right underneath what you just wrote. Here, first, somebody answer me this. This is the whole key to this. See the y there? That's the angle. It says the sine of y, that's an angle, is going to equal to x if you get this or this. Here's my question. See this range here? It says negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2. Where is that? This is big. It's key to what I'm going to do today. See this y? That's the angle, everybody. Look, see the y? That's the angle. This says negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2. What quadrants does that cover? That's my question. This is very important. It's like key to what I'm going to do today. What quadrants does that range cover?
Will be 4 and 1.
1 and 4. Look, isn't negative pi over 2 down here? Isn't positive pi over 2 up there? Now, y'all got to know that's 90 degrees. So there's 90 degrees, that's negative 90. So from here to here would be quadrants. You got to write this on that space there. Quadrant 1 or 4 is what it covers. If you want to draw yourself a little picture here for inverse sine, whenever you're looking for the inverse sine of something, the answer will be in quadrant 1 or quadrant 4. That's all. It's a restricted range. This is telling you where the answer can be. Now, if you flip on the other side, let me give you the other one. Y equals inverse cosine of x. Today is just sine and cosine. Now, what's the other way you can write this? Because of what you saw I did the first time. Remember I said it's the same thing, it means the same thing? Ethan. Y equals arc cosine of x means cosine of y equals x for, now watch this. Look at this restricted range. Look what it says, 0 to pi. What's that covering? Over there, look. 0 to pi. Now you got to know what pi is, you should. What quadrants does this cover? That's all I'm asking. What quadrants? Nathan?
1 and 2.
1 and 2. Quadrant 1 or 2. Now I hope you're marking your handout the way I'm writing this up here, because this is the whole key to the homework. If you wanted to draw a little picture of this, and believe me, this is all going to help you. Here's inverse sine, and there's inverse cosine. Now, let me give you an idea of all you're going to have to do for homework. Because look what it says on the back, and Joe, this is what you just asked me. Note, you must know all special angles. You must know them in degrees and radians. You must also know the trig function values for all the special angles. Okay, now you got that chart in front of you. You might want to keep it in front of this is what the homework's going to look like. The first part of the homework's going to say, evaluate each expression in terms of degrees. Now, there's the answer to your question. And the second part of your homework is going to say, evaluate each expression in terms of radians. Now watch this. Let's put this down. Here's example 1. Now just bear with me. You're going to have to see a few examples. Now leave some space for that. And then here's example 2. Now please pay attention, because the rest of the week is based on what I'm doing today. Let me just start with those two. Here and here. You can just put them in your notebook there, or at the bottom of that handout, whatever you want to do. Now, the problem's going to look like this or look like this. Now, look at what I just told you they mean. Y equals inverse cosine of something. Y equals arc sine of something. Now you see the value right there? Isn't that a special angle value? Aren't those familiar values for special angles? That's why you're not going to need a calculator for these. They'll be special angles. When you see a problem like this, look what it says it means. You have to write it down right away. Y equals arc sine of 1/2 means the sine of y is 1/2. Got to write that down in your paper first. Y equals arc cosine of negative radical of 2/2 means the cosine of what angle equals negative radical 2/2. Now please give me your attention here. You got to get by the first day before the rest of the work makes sense for the rest of the week. Sometimes they'll be like this. Sometimes they'll be like this. All you have to do here is tell me what the angle is. Now you've done this kind of thing before with special angles. This is saying the sine of what angle is 1/2. This is saying the cosine of what angle equals negative radical 2/2. Now you see these little pictures I drew here? This is huge for what we're going to do. If it's inverse sine, where's the only place the answer can be? I drew a little picture for you there. This is big, everybody. You need to understand this. If it's an inverse sine problem, where's the only places the answer could be? It's right there. I gave it to you. 1 or 4. Is that what you said?
I said fourth.
But wait a minute. 1 or 4. You see this? Every inverse sine problem, the answer can only be from there to there. If it's an inverse cosine problem, the only place the answer could be is 1 or 2. Do you see it? Okay, now listen to me. If it's an inverse sine problem and it's positive, won't the answer always be in quadrant 1? If it's an inverse cosine problem and it's positive, won't the answer always be in quadrant 1? So if it's positive, it's always first quadrant. Sine of what angle equals 1/2? Now, you're going to be surprised how fast these problems are. If you know your special angles, you're going to breeze through this. But look what's happening here. You must get familiar again. That's why I gave you this. If I were you, every day you come in here this week, I'd have this little chart out on your desk. Now, you're not going to have it when you take the test, but you guys do what you do when you take a test. The sine of what angle? Now, what you want to do right here is always put the quadrant. Now, it's got to be in the first quadrant because it's positive. What's the answer? That's an easy one. Oh, come on, fellas. This is just saying the sine of what angle is 1/2 in the first quadrant. That's all it's saying. Andrew, 30 degrees. Now, watch this. What if the direction said, give the answer in terms of radians? Because part of the homework is going to do that. Look, if it said give the answer in radians, well, what's 30 degrees in radians? Get familiar again with these special angles. John. Now, if you're sitting there going, well, do you want to write it like this or this? The directions will tell you. If it says degrees, there's the answer. If it says radians, there's the answer. Now, watch this. Right here. Cosine of what angle it's negative. What quadrant you in? Remember, we're the only place you could be in. I drew that nice little picture there. That's big. This says the cosine of what angle is negative something. What quadrant does this have to be? Has to. Fellas, a lot of this stuff is stuff you learned before.
Two.
It's got to be in quadrant 2. It can't be in the first because it's positive. It's got to be in quadrant 2. So here's the question.